How are you, Jerry?
I'm good, Joanne. How are you this evening?
I'm good.
Good.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, Laura.
How are you all this evening?
Good, thanks.
How are you?
I am fine, thank you.
It was so much easier to do this live when we had papers we could just juggle around instead of trying to figure out what's on what. Oh boy. Okay.
I don't know about you, I miss the big desk too. 'Cause
Uh-huh.
You could put things in different piles to grab from, so.
And here, you know, I try to at least run off paper agendas, but then you have a piece here. So
Good evening, everyone. How's everybody doing?
good, Emerson.
Hello,
How are
Emerson.
you?
Oh, hanging all right.
You feeling okay?
Oh, yeah. Just got off one Zoom meeting onto another one.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, someday you'll miss it.
Yeah. Laura, you know, we're closed. The ministry is closed tomorrow.
I did know that. I talked to Derek today about something else, and he mentioned that just given the climate, that it seemed like a good option.
Yeah. I'll probably be glued to the television, so.
We all will be.
I don't think I've ever wished for uneventful more in my life than I am for tomorrow. Just the events that are supposed to happen, let them happen and I'll be good.
And,
Jerry, I got one question for you.
yes, sir.
This is Marie's first council
Yeah.
meeting. Were we supposed to be nice to her or just?
Yeah.
No?
Yes, of course.
We're not going the baptism by fire route, or that's
Yeah.
enough inside school
Hey.
already.
We have to give her at least one meeting, okay?
One meeting? All right, all right,
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
all right.
Good to see you all.
Yeah,
You
it's
as well,
good to
Marie.
see you.
Good to see you too.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Pam. Hi, David.
Hey, David.
How is everyone?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Excellent. Yep.
So we're just, here comes Sarah and then Karen.
Something.
Hi, Dale.
Hey, Mayor.
How are you doing?
Not too bad, thanks you.
Oh, wait a minute or two for Karen to come and join us. There she is. Good. Hi, Karen.
Hello.
Well, I think we can go ahead and open our meeting this evening, and we want to begin, hi Katie, by welcoming our new city manager, Marie Peoples, to the meeting this evening. We have a number of attendees here and some interviewees, and for all of you, we're so happy to have Marie with us. So thanks for joining us. Yay.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. It's been quite a week, so I've really enjoyed it and just really appreciate being here and learning more about Webster. So thank you.
Great. All right, we're going to begin this evening with board and commission interviews, and we have quite a few of them this evening. And so we'll start by saying what we ask you to do is tell us a little bit about why you are applying for this particular board or commission and what you think you will bring to the table. And so we'll just give you a couple of minutes to do that. I'm going to run down my list here and ask Marilyn Bradley, Cece Bartels, and Alex Elmstead first. So I'll start with Marilyn Bradley. And Marilyn, can you unmute and video yourself so that you can talk about why you're applying to be re-upped on the Arts Commission?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Would you like to say why you're applying again for the Arts Commission, Marilyn?
Yes. Yeah, I think the Arts Commission has become part of my life. I think I'm on every organization in Webster Groves that relates to the arts, and I'd like to continue with my interest.
Okay. Does anybody have any question for Marilyn?
I'm just curious as to how long Marilyn served on the commission. Hi, Marilyn, by the way, it's Laura.
Laura, I've been on the commission since it originated.
And I
Thank
might
you.
add that Marilyn has a long track record of giving herself her time and effort. She has done the mural on the hardware store and even helped us negotiate good prices with Brother Mel, and she's been with us for a while. Thank you, Marilyn, for reapplying.
And Marilyn's been on since 2006. Thank you.
Right. Our next interviewee is Cece Bartels. And Cece, can you tell us why you've applied to the commission and what you think you'll bring to the table?
Well, I've been a longtime resident of Webster, 41 years now in the same house. And I've had a long-term art business before, 20 years representing artists. So I have a lot of familiarity with the category. I like and want to keep the taste level up in Webster Groves. And in doing so, we all benefit from that. So that, I guess that's my sure that we have good taste level all around our community. And I think I can enhance and add to that.
All right. Does anybody have a question for Cece? Thank you. Our next one is Alex Elmstead. Alex, can you tell us a little bit about why you're applying?
Hi. Hi, I'm Alex Olmsted. I'm a fairly new resident to Webster Groves. Actually moved here in June at 748 East Swan. And I come from Webster, having come from the Hill, and then working at the Contemporary Art Museum St. Louis as the Director of Learning Engagement for 10 years. There I've worked with international, regional, and local artists over that period of time, working from programs to commissions to the installation of artworks. And currently I work at the city of and I run the Clayton Community Foundation there, which focuses on art, history, parks, and sustainability, one of which is focusing on commissioning or creating public art within the city of Clayton. So I've been there a year. So being a new resident, I want to be engaged, and I also want to offer my services and/or expertise, given that the city of Webster has a lot of opportunities in terms of arts and culture.
Thank you. Any questions for Alex? All right. Sticking with the Arts Commission, we have, I think, Rob Longstreet. Rob, can you unmute yourself and tell us why you've applied to the Arts Commission? Are you there, Rob? You are muted. You're still muted, Rob.
Okay, is that working now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So I've had an art business for about 20 years. I work internationally. I do large scale artwork where I deal with projects with architects, interior designers, and collectors. The job is to work with different spaces, different interiors, different projects. I've been a resident of Webster my whole life. I'm just trying to think what else. And my whole life is thinking about trying to understand and creating art. And I just thought that I would be a good fit for working in Webster, thinking about when different projects are come forward to Webster, it's like that's what I do as I think about art, and so I think I'd be a good fit. That's about it. I can't think.
Thanks, Rob. Does anybody have a question for Rob? Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
There is one other application, and that is from Katie Cahoon, and Katie unfortunately has standing Tuesday night meetings. She has forwarded a letter to each of you about why she would like to stay on the Arts Commission. She is the current chair of the Arts Commission. So if you accept the letter, fine. If not, we'll see if we can finagle her onto some sort of meeting at our next meeting. All right, we have a couple of other folks here. We have John Burse. John Burse, who is applying to the Board of Adjustment as an alternate member. And John, same thing. Tell us why you're applying to this board.
Sure thing. Well, good evening, everyone. I've been a resident of Webster since 2012 after living in the city for almost 15 years. And I can say for my family, coming out here has been absolutely, we couldn't ask for more, in terms of a community. And my interest in serving is to really give back to that and be engaged civically. I'm an architect practicing over the course of about 3 decades. My work is really focused on community, starting in town planning and urban design. And that love of community has really been translated to campus life projects today. When I was a city resident, though, I was very engaged in urban revitalization, historic preservation, bought a house in an up and coming neighborhood. Does anyone know where Crown Candy is?
Of course.
Right. I was very engaged over the course of 10, 12 years, helping revitalize that neighborhood. Met a lot of folks, spent a lot of time volunteering, really transformed that neighborhood organization with a lot of other people and players into a fairly robust community development corporation at the time. And alongside that, had the opportunity to serve in a lot of different boards. Probably the most pertinent experience was on the City of St. Louis's Preservation Board, which dealt with all the historic districts in the neighborhood or in the city, all the local districts and National Register districts. And so that was an enormous experience, almost 10 years appointed by Mayor Harmon, right up until the point we decided to move to Webster, and even chaired it for several years, which those were some very intense meetings, because you think of just all the diversity in the city, all the different kinds of cases that you would hear. So anyway, long story short, a lot of different experiences. Our children are a little bit more independent, and with that extra time, I'd love to give back to the city that has been so good to us and our move out here. That's my spiel.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question for John? John, I've noticed that you've also applied for a couple of other boards and commissions that I think your background would service us well with the ARB and the Planning Commission. Your experience is relevant to both of those commissions. So we'll have to see where all of this lands. Okay.
I'm absolutely flexible.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see. I lost my front page here. Right, Laura, we'd have been better off with a big desk and lots of papers. Michael Rose is our interviewing here for the Historic Preservation Commission. Michael, are you on here somewhere? There you are.
Yep, I'm right
Same
here.
thing, Michael. Tell us why you've applied to this commission.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in St. Louis. I grew up in North County, moved to Creve Coeur. My dad worked at Hickson Middle School for just a few years, but in those years, because I was younger, I would come with him on a regular basis on days off, and we'd drive through Webster, and I was always fascinated with the architecture, with the houses. One of my close friends' grandmas lived in 337 Gray. So in high school, he and I would go every weekend, and we'd tend to her yard, and then we would just walk around the Webster area. One of the things that brought my wife and I here 4 years to Webster Groves proper, we lived in Shrewsbury before that, but what always brought me to Webster Groves was the architecture, the houses, the historic nature of this township. And I guess most recently, what really pushed me to apply for this was I go running throughout Webster. I'm over by Lockwood, off Lockwood by Larson Park. And so I run North Webster quite a bit. Probably about a month ago, I was running down, forget the name of it. I think it was Slocum that I was running down, and it was house after house after house that had been torn down with new houses built up. And I just started thinking about that concept of historic preservation and noticing that more frequently happening. So when I saw this availability come up, I thought I'd throw my hat in and go for it.
Thank you, Michael. Does anyone have a question for Michael? Thank you. Thank you very much for telling us about yourself and applying for a position on the Historic Preservation Commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I believe that's it for our interviewees, and we will come back and talk about this later when we deal with appointments. We'll begin to work our way down the agenda. Is there anything on the regular agenda that needs to be reviewed? If not, we're going to go to our topics and we're going to go to our issues and updates first. And so I guess I'll just start with folks around the table. Karen Alexander, do you have any updates for us?
I attended the historic preservation meeting last week, the 12th, and there was just discussion about collaboration, working with a gentleman, his name is Bill Wickman, that has started a really pretty impressive virtual walk So it has to do with the historic walk, and he's pretty much engaged with the Historical Society of St. Louis or St. Louis County, and he's already on his own done a lot of photos and cataloging and whatever of historical properties in Webster. So he's interested in some type of collaboration, which the board was very interested in creating a virtual walking tour of Webster to go with the one that we already have, so that when people are out walking, they could actually pull the things up on their telephone that would give them the history of whatever house it is that they're looking at. So I thought that was pretty interesting. They're discussing further about what they can do to join their maps with his content, and just creating a stronger liaison between the historical societies and the Webster Historical Society. And then the other thing that the conversation interesting that the gentleman just mentioned, but there was conversation about the need to look beyond just the existing historical significance of a property before opining as to whether it's acceptable to tear it down or not, in terms of responding to people's requests to demolish properties. Right now, it sounds like pretty much what has been occurring is, if they say there's historical value to the property, then that's the biggest contributing factor as to whether or not they're agreeing for it to be demolished or not. And they're discussing needs to look further than just that historical significance. And I thought that was pretty interesting, but we know that's one of my hot buttons. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Karen. Good summary. I listened in on that meeting. You did a good summary. Pam Bliss, do you have anything?
I do. I attended the Old Webster Trade Association meeting and with Jerry and Emerson and David, and I will let one of you comment on that. But I did want to give a shout out to two restaurants in Webster, Gorilla Street Food and Olive and Oak. They've applied for and received grants for the Community Carryout Fund, which is a fund which matches restaurants with nonprofit organizations. So they prepare meals and then give them to the nonprofit organization. So it helps the businesses, they get a little business out of it, and then it helps the nonprofits. So I just think it's a neat effort. I know they're going through their third round of grants right now. If you know of any restaurants that want to apply, you can find them on Facebook. It's Community Carryout Fund. And that's it.
Thanks, Pam. Laura?
I really had kind of a question. As many of you know, Missouri American Water has applied with the Public Service Commission for a rate increase, and it's what they've applied for is, depending on how you calculate it, maybe a 25% increase. And I wondered if we as a council have ever weighed in, or do we provide information to our residents about how they can participate in that process? The most local public hearing, and they're all virtual, is Thursday, but the Public Service Commission lets you comment throughout the course of this. So I guess, maybe this is more a question for you, Jerry, given your long-term service to our community. I'd like our residents at least to know that this is something that they can weigh in on at a very minimum.
And I agree with you. I think what we really need to do is do some education with this, and we'll put some of this information in the Friday page, and we need to, we have a community connection coming up, and we need to get this out. I'll take it on myself to call the Webster Kirkwood Times. I think getting more of our residents to understand the process of public hearings and what this means is probably the best way for us to go. I don't know whether we as a council want to make any sort of statement about it. I think it's better if we can get the education out and get people to respond throughout the community. I know that Joanne is doing some calculation of what this would mean for us. because in some ways it'll bring us extra revenue, but it is also going to cost us because, like everybody else, you know, we buy a lot of water every year, all the time. And so I think Joanne is working on that. Am I correct, Joanne, that you're going to come up with something?
I had only calculated the revenue. However, if the city council is interested in the expenditures, I can calculate that as well.
What it would cost us as a city with that 20% rate increase?
The problem is that, as you know, utilities fluctuate just like water, and water usage fluctuates with the weather. And so it's kind of a challenging number to estimate, but I can do my best.
Okay. Does that help, Laura? If
It
we
does.
can
And, you
get
know,
the information out?
Yeah, I put something, you know, I still, from my campaign, have my Facebook page. I put some stuff on there today. So I have the links that I can send you. I just want to be, I mean, the staff position is that they asked for too much. The Office of Public Counsel says they asked for too much. So I think more residents who voice their concern, the more likely that staff report is taken seriously. So I just want to make sure our residents have an opportunity to comment on it and that they know it exists. I mean, we got the card in the mail, all of us as residents, but we know how that goes these days. Sometimes those things go right into the recycling bin.
The Missouri Municipal, not the Missouri Municipal League, the St. Louis County Municipal League has hired some consulting help to intervene in the case. So we will have a good legal intervention coming from the Muni League.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess the last thing I'd say is if we keep an eye on it, the Muni League keeps an eye on it. If it comes to the point where we feel like we need to have something to say, I'd like at least to be on everybody's radar.
I think that's a really good idea. I have a legislative advocacy group that we've used in the past, and I will reactivate that also, get the information out to them.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you. Emerson?
Nothing, but just want to mention that Jerry and myself were working together, looking at some needed repairs at Douglas Manor. We're going to work through the owners and then take steps from there if we don't get any type of response.
Yeah.
So we kind of accept it as our project. So we'll be working with that. Other than that, I have nothing else, Mayor.
Yep, we've made a step forward there, and we'll see where that goes. David Franklin?
Nothing, Mayor.
Sarah?
No updates, just would say that the Thursday night meeting coming up for Alliance for Interracial Dignity is maybe a good opportunity to hear from residents about kind of where they feel like our community is right now in the grand scheme of some of these big conversations we've been having around race and equity. And so just to kind of lift that up is something that if folks are interested, I'd be happy to share information. There's a couple of us that go pretty often, but it's a Thursday evening virtual meeting.
Thank you, Sarah. Let's see. Marie, do you have anything?
Sorry about that, Mayor. Couldn't find the mute. You know, I'll be brief. I've met with all of the directors this week. I've met with lots of staff, and I've been reaching out to community, have some meetings set up with Webster Chancellor, the school district superintendent. I believe you and I are going to attend the chamber luncheon this week. So it's been, as I said, a busy week, and I hope to continue making additional community connections. And if council has other folks they would like me to meet with, and I've heard from some of you already, I would be happy to take those names and to make contacts over the next couple of weeks. So thank you.
Great. Katie, anything?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Neil, do you have anything for us?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Well, the only thing that I had were the water rates, which we've already covered. We did attend the old Webster Trade Association meeting today, and there were some very interesting thoughts about a need to have a better coordination among the many business organizations and city commissions that we have. I'll share that at some point with some of you, but they would really like for us to think about pulling together with the Business Development Commission, maybe the chairs of all of the various taxing districts that we have, in order to try to come up with a little more collaborative way of moving forward. You have various groups thinking about doing their own brochures with a focus on only the people who belong to that association in that particular group, where we could really stand to have something that is a little bit more citywide. So we'll see about moving that forward.
Mayor, I was a little confused. I mean, it definitely sounds like it's necessary and needed, but what's the whole purpose of the Business Development Commission if that's not what their objective is?
That is their purpose.
So it seems like we almost need to revisit what the Business Development Commission is doing, or how to like narrow them in or focus them in a little bit more.
Or have a nice little visit with them and see where they are and what's going on. Because they also talked about finding ways to even bring the businesses together, to talk together at one big Zoom meeting. And some of those things were things that we used to do. So I think there's a real need for some coordination among these various groups. We have to figure something out here. All right, we're going to go on to topics, and our first topic is Joanne's quarterly financial report. Joanne, you're on.
Good evening. I'm going to share my screen with you. It is, of course, the handout that was sent to you recently. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to be very brief with you because this is the same thing pretty much that you saw last month. The exception is we have one more month of information, and this is with 6 months in, or at least 6 months of expenditures in, but in many cases it's 4 to 5 months of revenue, since this is modified accrual basis of accounting. So when we go through, you'll see again that the property tax is doing just fine, and intergovernmental revenue is also doing fine at this point in time. The third item, sales tax, is also 36.4%. It shouldn't be 50% right now because we've only collected 4 months worth of revenue. So if you, that would be about 33%. So we're about 3% ahead of where we should be, but I wouldn't get excited about that because with timing differences and such, that could be the real difference. And we may be we may be more ahead than at this point, but we really, as one more month progresses, we might not be that far ahead anymore. Licenses, that number is greater than it was last year, but a bit smaller than the prior year. And if you remember on the licenses, that has a number of things, including the motor vehicle licenses, business licenses and such. I assumed that the business license number right now would be lower than the prior year, but it isn't. It's actually a bit higher. So I'm not sure what's happening because I thought that perhaps businesses would have some challenges, and they probably still will because we don't, they're not all due until April. So we'll see how that all falls out amongst our various businesses and business licenses. But we also have a large piece that's telecommunications as well here. The inspection fees and permits, that fluctuates tremendously from year to year, especially if we have much larger projects happening, for example, at Webster University and items like that. But we have had just a substantial amount based on what's happened with COVID in our economy, a substantial number of new homes and additions being built to homes this year that really is surprising to me here in Webster Groves. The next one, the utility taxes, that's a disappointing number. I believe that part of it does have to do with the weather, but another part is that more people are working from home now. And so there's not as much of a need to have those same utilities in those particular facilities as was in the past. We also have an issue here with utility taxes, and you'll recall that we've talked about the utility taxes for the cell phones and that they're not paying the proper amount on the cell phones regarding the data. And so that is actually being investigated as we speak by an attorney firm that we've previously discussed. Fines, this number is tremendously lower than the prior year. And we've discussed that municipal court functions are minimal. We're just doing them via Zoom and just a small number right now as well. You'll see the service fees. Those numbers are a bit smaller than the prior 2 years, but normally they rebound. And those are for ambulance service fees, et cetera. And then the recreation fees is the one that's the most disappointing. But there's nothing really that we can do about that because we're half of what we received at the same point in time last year. You'll also notice though, on the flip side, when we get to the expenditure side, there's that reverse situation where the expenditures are also lower because they're not able to hire the individuals to provide the various programs and services that we've done in prior years. And then finally, the other income is lower. Part of it has to do with investment income because we just are getting terrible rates for our investments at this point in time. Finally, if you take a peek at expenditures, you'll see that we're doing very well. We're all below the 50%, which is where we are budgeted to be at this point in time. The only item is the insurance, and that's a timing difference. But otherwise, we're in really good shape on the expenditure side. So you'll see that we have, at this point right now, our expenditures are over our revenues by 2.5 million, but then we do the transfers in. And if you recall, that has to do with monies from different funds, including the Public Safety Sales Tax Fund. And that one doesn't have expenditures separately allocated to it in that particular fund. They're allocated in the general fund and the Capital Improvement Sales Tax Fund. And that's why this transfer in is necessary. The next item is the transfer in from the CARES funds. We have still only received the first half of the money from St. Louis County. So that's what I'm reflecting here. And then finally, so the net change in fund balance right now is a positive 316,689,000. So that provides an increase in our fund balance of 11,370,549. Just one thing quick I want to show you is to remind everybody is the primary sources of revenue for the general fund. It's fantastic that we have such a comprehensive assortment of revenue sources because even if we had a situation with sales tax, and as you know, that's the most elastic item that we have here is the sales tax. So when sales tax falls, there are some others that don't have as much elasticity in them, like property tax. And so that helps us. We don't just completely fall apart. There are many other pieces. And I will tell you that a lot of cities are not like us. They don't have all of these components. And I think that's what does our city well, is that we have so many options to work with.
Joanne, do you know why the CARES Act, the second round is delayed, or is it delayed?
So, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you, David?
No, I'm sorry. I finished. Thank you.
So the reason is that now they're using a third-party auditing firm to double check all of the information that each municipality submitted. We haven't gotten any contacts from the auditing firm yet, and I am confident that what we submitted was very much what they wanted. But I can tell you that in some cities, they included data on senior staff. So for example, their police chiefs or their fire chiefs. And they said that that really wasn't someone who would have the day-to-day operations with COVID. We did not do that here in Webster Groves. So And we provided a tremendous amount of detail and data. So I think that we shouldn't have an issue once they get to us. But with the 90+ municipalities, it just takes time.
Excellent. Thank you. That's helpful.
Joanne, the use tax, would that create a new slice of pie in this chart, or would it go into the sales tax slice, or where would that, or does that even not go into the general fund? I need to be refreshed.
So that would need to be a discussion by the city council as far as where they want that revenue to go. If it would go to the general fund, then it would be a sales tax. So I would just combine it because this includes 2 taxes right here.
Okay, thanks.
Actually 3.
Other questions? Anything else? Any comments? I'm going to say thank you to Joanne. It looks like we're hanging in there pretty well for now. And that's, we're really very, very fortunate. And I think Joanne's comment about us having so many sources of income, which is where we've been we used to scrape by so much, that this does work to our advantage. I know some of our other cities are really having a difficult time now because they have relied so much on one source of revenue. And many of the cities that have big office buildings, they're not getting that utility tax, and it's tough for them. So we're hanging in there okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we're off to the golf cart discussion. And I'm going to start out by saying, are we going to continue this discussion to try to come up with a proposed ordinance, or are we done with it? Dale, you have recommended all along that we not allow golf carts. They are currently not permitted on the streets, and that we stick with that. I think that's been your recommendation, correct?
That's my recommendation, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to ask some of the council members if they are in a position where you want to develop an ordinance that allows them with restrictions.
Gary, can I ask a question first?
Sure.
I thought that's what was in our packet, right? There was something in our packet that had seemingly qualifications for having a golf cart. I assumed it came from Neil. I don't know where it came from.
I think it was the Crestwood piece.
Well, right. I changed it though to fit Webster's needs. I edited it a little bit in order to meet some of our needs and the concerns that have been expressed, but it did come from me.
Okay. So here's the question. Then if you'll find it, it is attached to the end of the work session grouping of our material for tonight. I guess what I want to ask is, do you want to pursue this or not?
I thought, now I know that we've spent a lot of time discussing this,
Yes,
and obviously
we have.
I would like us to move on, but I thought that was the whole purpose of our last work session, was that an ordinance would come before us and then be voted on. Whether it passes or not is, I think, left for future determination, but I guess I'm confused why we're even needing the necessary for like the time to spend at a work session. I thought it would just come before us at a work session, I mean, at a regular session, and it could be amended and or passed or voted down thereafter.
So what we're saying is, or what David is recommending, is that we take this piece that Neil has put together for us with purpose, intent, definitions, operations, etc., and that we put that into an ordinance format for the next meeting. Is that what we're asking for?
Well, Mayor, I actually have some questions from the document that was put into our packet.
Okay,
Okay.
go for it, Emerson.
Okay. I did notice that there's a distinct definition for golf carts and low-speed vehicles.
Mhm.
Are we just speaking of golf carts?
Neil, tell us, does this
So
apply?
I'm sorry. Yeah, let me address it. So I went a little bit broader because there are, in the last conversation that we had, people had noticed, of course, that Webster University uses these low-speed vehicles. They use them as part of their groundkeeping and landscaping groups and that sort of thing. So I thought I needed to address that. As I looked at, because that is different, of course, most of those are equipped with the safety features that we do reference later in the ordinance. They have lights, they have signals, they have mirrors. All of those things are contained in there. But in addition, I also addressed a little bit broader scope in this thing, because if you'll recall, some time ago, we approved motorized scooters, which are two-wheeled vehicles, because we thought that perhaps Bird or one of these organizations would come into town, and there'd been a recommendation from one of our commissions, which had suggested that that might be a good idea. Now, they've never come into town, but we did pass an ordinance that said they can. Now, the interesting part of that, though, is that if we allowed them to come in, and Katie actually had pointed this out close in time to when this had occurred, there is a provision that would prohibit that. So we need to clean that up a little bit. We also, since we're talking about them, I thought, well, we'd also add in here motorized wheelchairs, carts that people ride who have some accessibility issues. So I added all of that in, not just golf carts, but everything in there that's not an automobile, that's not a motor vehicle under Missouri law. We basically said, here's how it works. And we added in the concerns about safety. We added in requirements for insurance and all of those things, lights, seat belts, who can operate, who can't. So it's a little bit broader than just golf carts. And so, again, I point that out because I think it accomplishes more than just the golf cart conversation might have accomplished.
Thank you.
And but maybe, Neil, you can answer this question for me. Golf carts, and that's what I'm going to focus on. I understand what the low-speed vehicles are. They're actually the vehicles that must be registered and licensed with the state of Missouri. Is that correct?
Yeah, and yes, and they have a distinct definition that I've adopted in the proposed ordinance.
Golf carts are not required to be registered, licensed, or insured.
Well, that's correct, and in fact, I think that you would have a great deal of trouble insuring a golf cart.
So therefore, I want to make sure golf carts and low-speed vehicles, they're two different items. So
Yes,
I guess since they don't have the safety items on it, like the headlights, brake lights, is there a dusk to dawn type of ability to use these golf carts in the city?
Well, my proposal is that if you are going to use the golf carts, that they do have some lighting. There should be some limitations on the times of usage. Again, it's one of those situations where if you're going to allow them, I think you have to. Again, it describes, I think, in here. Let me get back to the language of it. It describes in here.
Neil, if I could, I remember reading the artist. What you had, I'm not sure if it was in there or not, but my strong suggestion was that if it's passed, if we do allow them, that they be required to meet the same standards for the traffic control, so that they would not be allowed on the street after dark unless they did have headlights. They'd be subject to the same regulations as a regular motor vehicle. So anything after dark, if they don't have headlights, they couldn't be on the street.
Right, and I actually, and I'm looking for the language, but for some reason it is not in here. But I had provision, I had an entire section that talked about the need to not only have lights, but the need to have seatbelts and the need to make sure that they are insured. So again, it did bring them into the purview. Frankly, you'd have to spend a lot of money to upgrade it in order to get it into what would essentially be the low-speed vehicle category. But that's the only way you're going to ever get the necessary safety items on the thing.
You know, the other thing that we talked about in the context of that was some provision potentially that the police department had a chance to review and license the vehicle essentially, so that it wouldn't be a piecemeal having to stop golf cart after golf cart because you didn't have the headlights or you didn't. If that's workable, I think that would be good.
Yeah, and what we would do is do something like a sticker that you would then put on your golf cart to indicate that you had met the minimum qualifications. I'm a little concerned about doing a whole lot in the way of inspections because, number one, the police department isn't really qualified to do that, other than to say, yes, you have lights, yes, they work, yes, you have seatbelts, yes, they seem to work, you know, that sort of thing. Yes, you have an insurance card, you know, so it would be something that then they could give you a sticker that says you've met those minimum requirements, and you stick it on the side of the golf cart. That way, a police officer passing by can look at it and say, yeah, they've qualified. And you would normally put the year on it. You know, it's something like you do with a boat at a lake. You buy a sticker, it's good for a year.
Yeah. And Neil also noticed that the definition says is designed and manufactured for operation on a golf course for sporting or recreational purposes. Not capable
of a golf cart.
Speeds of 20 miles per hour. That's the Missouri statute definition?
Yes, it's adopting what is a recognized definition of the golf cart.
Okay.
Okay.
Based on that, are there any other of our codes that must be modified if we do allow golf carts? And
we would have to.
I'm specifically, one came to mind when I was reading it, that a congestion of traffic.
Yeah, and that can be a problem. Again, if what we would do is limit them and put them on streets where the speeds were less than 25 miles per hour, and that was a provision that I would normally add in to something like, I would recommend you add into something like this. So you wouldn't allow them on the larger thoroughfares with the higher speed limits. But yeah, I mean, a golf cart can go up as fast as 20 miles per hour. That doesn't mean it necessarily does. So if they're puttering around a neighborhood, that's one thing. You know, if they find themselves on the larger streets, that's something altogether different. I don't know that we necessarily have to change that ordinance, but at least it's something to be concerned about, and part of the reason why, you know, frankly, we limit them.
I did see in the Cottleville, and I think it was probably the Crestwood in Eureka, that it said that they were required to stay to the side outside of the regular lane of traffic.
Yeah, now Cottleville actually built lanes where you could drive them. And again, it's sort of like a bicycle lane where you can operate them, even on the larger streets. That of course, the danger of that is, if they're not lit, you know, again, what time of day or night, can you see them? Can you not? Who knows? But I think that the concerns that we've talked about, making sure that they're lit, making sure that there are seat belts, making sure that they're insured, are probably the three biggest concerns. And again, we have to deal with the infrastructure that we have. So, you know, again, typically you would say that they cannot go on the larger thoroughfares except to cross them. And you would leave them on streets where the speed limit was 25 or 20 or less, whatever it might be.
Okay.
And you must be 16 years old with a driver's license in order to run these vehicles?
Yes. Yeah, and there was also a provision that I've seen in some of these that I think is kind of interesting that says in the event that, you know, a minor is operating the motor vehicle and the golf cart, and it is their parent's golf cart, that the parent is held responsible for the acts of the minor. And again, that's important because, you know, you have a 14-year-old or 15-year-old who decides it would be fun to take it out and somebody gets hurt. you have to have some responsibility on behalf of the parent because the minor can't be held responsible. So again, I think it is important, and I think it is connected with the whole safety issue.
All right, and if we go forward with this and put this in ordinance form, I would sure like to see that because I see a lot of really young kids driving those here.
Yeah, and I have an entire paragraph that addresses those things. I apologize. Somehow or another, it didn't make it into this handout. I must have given you the original one without the edits that I made. So I apologize for that. But yes, that would be something that's important. So if you'd so direct me, I will make sure that I will have for you for the next meeting a copy of an ordinance that has those limitations and those safety provisions, and then you can either vote it up or down.
All right. Is that all right with the council?
Yeah, I would just like to see if we are going to move forward with it, whatever the safety guidelines for the low speed vehicles, that the golf carts have the same thing. Lights, seatbelts.
Lights, the lights are missing too, Neil, from this. So if you go back through it, the lights, the responsibility for parents, and anything else that we think we need.
Headlamps, tail lamps, turn signals, rear view mirrors, stop lights, proper reflections. All that needs to be on a golf cart.
Insurance cards.
Yep.
Insurance cards.
Why?
Why what?
Emerson, why?
Why would you want that on a golf cart?
Yes, why?
For safety. For safety. Can you see someone driving a golf cart at night and a car can't see it? That's an accident waiting to happen.
A lot of these items were in Dale's recommendation that he made.
Yeah, and I'm just going to, so you want to equate, you want any golf cart to equal a low speed vehicle?
For the safety of the citizens, yes.
For whose safety?
Yeah, for whose safety?
Yeah.
For their safety and for others. Can you imagine a 16-year-old, not saying they're not responsible, driving a go-kart and another car hits them or they hit a car? Who's going to win in that situation? That car. They're going to win.
I mean, your same argument there can be applied to a 16-year-old driving a car hitting another car.
Well,
right?
No, you have to understand, David. I'm against it in the first place. I don't want to have for it to happen.
And that's perfectly fine. You can vote no.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that we're having this argument. I understand opposition to this. All I'm saying is that it seems kind of absurd to start imposing all of these new regulations on a golf cart when we all know what a golf cart is. I think simple, routine measures on a golf cart makes sense for our city, but to suddenly say, oh, a golf cart now has to be some whole other vehicle seems to be defeating the purposes of having golf carts.
Yeah.
Can we just wait and see what Neil comes back with? We're arguing specifics here, and we don't have anything specifically in front of us. So that just would be my suggestion.
Yeah, those are the things I'd like to see in the ordinance.
Okay, good. Then let's go for it. Neil, you've got all the pieces there that folks are asking for. Good luck in writing this ordinance.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, I had a question.
Yes, please.
And Neil, it was a question for you, and I'm not sure I understood you correctly, but I thought you said that it would be difficult to insure a golf cart. Did I hear that correctly?
It will be.
I guess my curiosity, and it can wait for discussion, but if we know something is difficult to insure, I'm curious about making it a requirement to insure. It sounds like that's putting something impossible as a requirement. I'm not sure about the wisdom behind that. So I just want to make sure I heard that correctly and would await council's discussion.
And the one thing I will say in the places that have approved them is that typically there is a provision that does require insurance. Now, the problem is, what are you insuring it as? And what are you insuring in these situations? If you were to go out and of course you purchase an automobile, you're going to buy insurance for that car. What that insurance provides for you when you buy that insurance is it provides you protection in the event that you're in an accident. So it will provide you coverage for any property damage that you might suffer, and it will cover you for any liabilities that you have encountered as a consequence of your negligence, whatever that might be. But it also, and perhaps this is the most important part, it also provides coverage for the people that you hit. So if I have a motor vehicle, I hit somebody, I'm at fault, my insurance pays that. If I am in a motor vehicle like a golf cart, okay, and it's not a motor vehicle, but for all intents and purposes, it is. If I'm in a golf cart and I'm in an accident, and let's say I have two people in it, I've got two 16-year-olds, and I don't want to pick on 16-year-olds. I've got two 21-year-olds that are sitting in the golf cart. They're having fun. They're not paying attention. They get hit by a car. They get broadsided because the driver of the golf cart wasn't paying attention. Okay. Now the passenger in that golf cart is injured. He would have absolutely no access to insurance as a consequence of that, because he is in an uninsured vehicle. I'm not going to call it a motor vehicle. I'm going to say it's an uninsured vehicle. Now he, because he's a passenger in the car, can make a claim against the driver of the golf cart, but he's got no insurance. Your own insurance, your own auto insurance, which would normally cover you, would not apply here because you're not in a motor vehicle as it's recognized under Missouri law. So that person is going to be hurt. That person is going to have medical bills, and there's absolutely no way to recover it. So the question that I think has to be asked here is, do you want to put someone on the road in a vehicle that has no insurance? And it's not unlike a motorcycle. You know, again, like Emerson said, when there's a collision between a golf cart and a car, or a golf cart and a truck, the car or the truck is going to win that battle every time. And people are going to get hurt. So the reason you have insurance, of course, is to deal with the injuries that occur in those sorts of situations. So that you can get insurance, but you have to equip them with enough equipment to essentially make it insurable. It's just hard to do, Marie, and some people may elect to do it, some people may not. If people really feel that strongly about them and want to spend the money to do it, then there you go. But you know, again, it comes down to, in my mind, a function of the council deciding the wisdom of whether or not we want vehicles which are essentially uninsured vehicles on the road.
Thank you. It's helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. We're done with this until we see the ordinance, and then we'll go forward from there.
I did want to acknowledge we do have an attendee with their hand raised, so maybe we can just let them know they can speak during the regular council meeting.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
We can do that. All right, we have about 1 minute left, and we have appointments to boards and commissions to consider. Perhaps if we want to put this off until the next meeting, I think that might be a good thing. We can look and see if there are alternative boards and commissions that folks are interested in, or possibly some new openings that will be occurring. I think I'd like to be able to do this. And I'm going to ask all of you to think about this, because this is a tough thing right now. We have a couple of members of the Arts Commission who have been longstanding members who have given a tremendous amount to the city. And with this current idea that new is better than folks who've been there, I think we need to be very careful that we don't do something that is extremely hurtful and may have some real negative consequences. So I want you all to think about that.
It always seems that we have this problem with the Art Commission.
Yeah, we do.
Well, we have this same conversation, and Jerry, you say the same thing to us. And I mean, I understand that. And I know both Marilyn and Katie as well, and they have given great service. And I feel like I'm in a real dilemma in considering this. Mm-hmm. But I also want us to recognize that we invite people and we worry about the diversity of our boards and commissions. And if we keep sending the same people back, whether it's geographic, whether it's race, whether it's income. So I just let the Arts Commission is hard. There's no question about that. I just don't want us to get into the default of not seeing the big picture either.
Well, and
Again, I don't know what I'm going to do. So
the
Yeah,
other thing we did do, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I did want to make this point that we did, you know, at the beginning of our term, Laura, David, and I, we did do a resolution to make the process be that you have to re-interview after 2 terms. And so I would like to figure out a way to make that resolution effective and
well,
address
people
various
are,
concerns
yeah,
as well.
people are re-interviewing. We're just
So-
also reappointing everybody.
Right.
Well-
That's what I'm saying. I think I just want to say we did kind of talk about this once before, and if we're not going to act on what we agreed upon a few years ago, I don't know why it's there. So,
But we are doing exactly what we agreed upon. We are re-interviewing these folks. It's a matter of whether or not we want to reappoint them. That's the decision that we all face.
I also have to
And-
keep, we also have to keep in mind, merely because we don't appoint someone doesn't mean that we discount all the service that they have provided to this city, and that should be applauded and we should thank them for doing so. But as Dave Buck always likes to inform us, we are the city of the arts, and as a city of the arts, certainly we have more people that can fulfill those roles on those commissions, other than the same people that have been participating now since 2006, for example.
Agreed, but it's just difficult. I'm acknowledging that this is difficult for everyone. And just as Laura said, this is very, very difficult to determine. And it's the Arts Commission. And I think because that commission has been so successful and has worked so hard, they have a good reputation for the work that they've done. And that's where it becomes very difficult. So we can deal with this at the next meeting, if that's okay with y'all. All right, shall we end our work session and go into our regular session? Does anybody need a 2-minute break? No? Okay, then let me find my agenda for the regular meeting. All right. So it is 7:30 and we are going to begin our regular city council meeting this evening. And we welcome all of you here. We have 11 attendees joining us this evening, and we're glad that you're here with us. And you know that at Remarks of Visitors, if you have submitted your remarks of visitors by 4 p.m., it will be read into the record, at least the first 3 minutes. And if you would like to speak, you can raise your hand at Remarks of Visitors and we will call on you and you can speak at that point. And we'll begin tonight with the roll call. Katie?
Yes, Mayor. Mayor Welsh,
Here.
Councilmember Arnold,
Here.
Councilmember Bliss,
here,
Councilmember Franklin,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Alexander,
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
All right, our first agenda item is Remarks of Visitors. Katie, do we have anything to read tonight?
Yes, we have 3 remarks of visitors, and I believe there's some hands up. So Jennifer will look at those too.
Okay, great.
Do you want to do hands first or? Do you want to do we're going to do hands first, I think.
Okay, Phil.
Sorry. But we don't have any right now. I thought there were.
There was one.
Oh, okay. No, that's just, yeah, okay. So hands can still go up, but I'm going to go ahead and start reading. All righty. Oh, and I just hit the screen to go down. That's fun. Sorry. Sorry. Okay, our first Remarks of Visitors is from Dave Buck. And it was received on the 18th. This remark is focused on the need and opportunity for City Council and staff to lead by example and inspire the real character of Webster Groves and its citizens. One of the 5 factors in assessing a new conditional use permit application deals with the character of the neighborhood. But Dr. Martin Luther King preached about something deeper and more important, the content of our character. Character is the moral development of the heart and is defined by the core values that guide our daily speech, thoughts, choices, decisions, and actions. Thus, it seems to reason that the real character of a neighborhood and community lies in the hearts of its citizens and not in the look and feel of its historic architecture. Core values is also an essential element of the 2021 strategic plan council and staff will soon meet to develop. What might these values be for our community and citizens? Trust, honesty, kindness, acceptance, sharing, empathy, diversity, equity, humility, others? How can council inspire such values? First, through leading by example and role modeling these values in your daily lives and interactions. And second, by embracing a unique and effective leadership model called Leadership by Values. Here's how it works. Once you identify your core values, do everything you can throughout the year to live up to and maximize each core value. And if you do, two things will happen. One, decision making is simple, and two, your council goals will take care of themselves. In short, don't worry so much about your goals, worry instead about the values that make the goals happen. Trust me, it works. I use this model all the time, most recently in putting on Porch Fest last October. One of our core values was sharing, not spending, and Porch Fest succeeded because of our community's incredible capacity to share, and we did not spend one penny on the event. But forget what I think. What are the core values you most value in your community and citizens that uniquely defines and differentiates Webster Groves? Thank you, and welcome Marie as our new city manager. Peace, Dave. Our second is from Daniel Berzini and was received on the 19th. A penny saved is a penny earned is good advice for all of us, especially for the city government of Webster Groves. Despite the city's decrease in tax collections and fees due to COVID-19, our city government continues to spend more than before the pandemic. There is a loss of fees from the recreation center, decreased utility tax collections, an employee pension shortfall of $975,000, and a whopping $1.2 million decrease in sales tax collections from just 3 months of the COVID shutdown. Given that our city leaders continue to spend while others belt tighten, lose their jobs, and close their businesses during these trying economic times, the city of Webster Groves has millions of dollars to spend. $5.4 million for Firehouse, $21.5 million for capital improvement projects ranging from park concrete to a new aquatic center over the next 4 years, 2 lobbying firms for the SG Collaborative, 2 lobbying firms to promote the use/internet sales tax, $4,500 for the first step of a 4-step diversity, equity, and inclusion program for the government of the city of Webster Groves, $15,000 to reprint the 6 April ballots to put the use/internet sales tax on it, twice a year pay raises for the 40 fire EMS personnel, 47 police officers, and 54 administrative staff. No amount of taxation can save Webster from this kind of profligate spending. The proposed use internet sales tax is expected to only generate $250,000, which won't cover the planned spending, but will hurt Webster's retail businesses by increasing the price of their goods and services. The city needs businesses to collect sales taxes. In just the first 3 months of the pandemic, the city is short $1.2 million in sales collections. How are sales tax collections since July of 2020? Businesses need sales, not a 13th sales killing use internet tax. If passed, people and businesses will simply shop online from the 27 states without a use internet sales tax of 9.24%. Webster Groves residents and businesses simply can't afford more taxes and more spending, unless our motto is a special place to live, work, and raise a family in a traditional yet progressive community of Webster, tax and more to spend more Groves. Sir Winston Churchill said it best. I contend that for a nation, Webster Groves to try to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself up by the handle. And then our last one is from Addie Seifert, and that was received on the 19th. Dear Council, my name is Addie Seifert, 444 Oak Tree. I am against the use of golf carts on our city streets. I share concerns with the police chief. There are 3 around my neighborhood, one of which I think has some sort of taillights. Although it is currently illegal for golf carts to be driven by anyone on public streets, they do it anyway. I don't think anyone has been criminalized yet. I have seen teens driving these, also adults with kids in the back. They never seem seatbelted in. I also saw a teen driving down the wrong side of the street. I don't see why the law should change because a few people bought one and want to play in the street. They can't keep up to speed on the streets and are too wide to pass safely. They could not be safe in a crash. Who knows if they are insured? Without headlights, brake lights, reflectors, speedometers, seatbelts, turn signals, mirrors, and windshields, they are a danger on the streets. Most are a nuisance already. The ones at Webster University are a nuisance also, but at least they are within their campus area. They seem to be gas-powered and stink to high heaven.
Usually their taillights do not work and they pull in front of cars going 12 miles an hour. Please keep them off the streets. Thank you. And then let's see if there are any hands up.
I don't see any.
I do not. Oh, there's a hand up. There we go. Robert Hader. I'm not allow him to talk. And all right. Okay. I've got Mr. Hader.
Yes, Mr. Hader, you may speak.
Perfect. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I was trying to raise my hand earlier. I didn't realize what section we were in, and then I took it down. But I'm a resident of Webster, and we're in the process of redeveloping a building to move our business here as well. And I'm one of the folks that has a golf cart. And I can tell you that we got ours fully insured, and it was relatively easy through State Farm. We got competing bids through Safeco as well. It was $8 a month with a substantial amount or sufficient amount of liability and injury coverage for it. Additionally, it was only about $90 to have seatbelts installed as well. It already had headlights and taillights and all the other applicable features, but just some of the variables that was kind of going through. So given that I'd just gone through all this, I wanted to just provide a little bit of clarity on what it had taken for us to kind of get to that point. Specifically regarding the insurance, State Farm is competitive in that front. I know my agent very well. So as soon as we got it, he told me what I needed to do and kind of got us through that. So I can provide any guidance on that. But we also competitively shopped Safeco, and it was a very easy process to do.
Thank you. Thank you for that information, Mr. Hader. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we can go on with the rest of our agenda. At some point, I believe some of us will need to address some of Mr. Brazini's comments because many of them are not correct. And I want us to make sure that we address them. Perhaps we can do that at our next meeting. All right, we'll go on to unfinished business, bill number 9138. Mr. Franklin, could you call for that? Third reading? Mute.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the third and final reading of bill number 9138 and its subsequent adoption.
Second.
Bill 9138, third reading. An ordinance of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri, adopting and enacting amendments to section 20.352 and 20.355 of the miscellaneous building code regulations and matters related thereto.
Are there any issues or questions? Hearing none, Katie?
We can't just talk about driveways for another half an hour for the.
No. Katie, call for the vote.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Arnold?
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss?
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander?
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson?
Yes.
Mayor Welsh?
Yes. All right, 9138 has passed. Let's go to Bill 9139. Pam Bliss, could you call for that, please?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the third and final reading of bill number 9139 and its subsequent adoption.
Second.
Bill 9139, third reading. An ordinance vacating that portion of the public right-of-way of Avenue A between 1306 South Elm Avenue and 14 East Rose Avenue on the attached Exhibit 1 to this ordinance 9139 and comprising approximately 4,350 square feet and consolidating lots for a new city fire station and matters related thereto.
Are there any issues or questions? Let's call for the vote.
Councilmember Bliss?
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander?
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson?
Yes.
Mayor Welsh?
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold?
Yes.
And 9139 has passed. So we will go to 9140. Councilwoman Arnold, could you call for that reading?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the third and final reading of bill number 9140 and for its subsequent adoption.
Second.
Bill 9140, third reading. An ordinance of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri, authorizing and directing the submission of a ballot proposition to the qualified voters of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri on April the 6th, 2021, to consider imposing a local use tax at the same rate as the local sales tax of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri, for purchases from out-of-state vendors that exceed $2,000.
Are there any questions or issues?
Mayor, I would just like for the general public who's viewing to let them know, because it wasn't an official public comment, that we did get a letter today from the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce in support of this on behalf of our local businesses. I mean, I think that's will be part of the discussion going forward, but I thought people should know. And then the second thing is, it was prompted by our earlier discussion. At what point do we talk about what this money is going to be used for? Because I don't want us to send this to the voters, have the voters approve it, and then us decide that it's for something in particular that they didn't necessarily know about. So I think we as a council ought to think about at what point, if we're going to designate this money for something specific, when are we going to have that discussion?
And we can certainly do that at the next meeting. We can talk about where that money might go, whether it goes into the general fund or something in particular. And I also think people should know that the one benefit of this use tax is that it does level the playing field for our local businesses, because what it means is that you can't avoid paying your sales tax by buying on the internet now. It levels the field. It really helps our small businesses. It doesn't hurt them.
Is it appropriate for me to ask for Rebecca Now's letter to be in our minutes at this point, so people, if they go back and look at the passage of this ordinance, can see what she said? I don't know if we usually do that or not.
Sure. I can.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anything else? And let's call for the vote.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Mayor Welsh,
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss.
Yes.
All right, 9140 has passed and we have some work to do. Does anyone care to remove anything from the consent agenda? If not, then let's see who can call for that approval. Sarah, would you like to call for the approval of the consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Mayor Welsh,
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin.
Yes.
All right, we have made no appointments this evening to boards and commissions. We'll do that at our next meeting. And we have no executive closed session. And so, oh my goodness. It's because
Really?
Marie is here. Don't you think that we
Done?
managed
Are we
to do
really
this?
done?
Just put that teaser time out there for her.
No pressure moving forward or anything.
We managed to do this in 19 minutes tonight. This is pretty good. And for those of you 12 attendees who are here, this is not usual. So, all right, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all this evening for your good work and discussion, and thank you all the guests for joining us this evening.
All right.
Bye,
Good night.
everybody.
Bye all. Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good night.